The Lightning Strike Warden still performing super well. I'm level 92, and yesterday I did my Eta Exarch. I've been playing in a little group found private league. We only have about 4 or 5 active players, so my gear is pretty garbage, and yet we were still able to comfortably do Eta and Exarch deathless. I have a 350, well actually a 400 EDPS claw, but I did Eta Exarch on a 350 EDPS claw. A lot of people in chat are actually better gear than I am, further ahead in their progression. So this shows that the build is functional in a semi-SSF and probably also SSF situation. But I've been getting a lot of the same questions, and in today's video we're going to be answering those. So let's go down the list, and this will be provided in the POB and in the spreadsheet, all these questions and the answers to them, and the POB will be updated with some of the changes. First question, when do we swap from Purity of Elements into Determination? I'm currently using Grace, Determination, Herald of Ice, and Precision. We use Determination once we get a decent shield, and a decent shield, Dawnbreaker is an excellent option. You can get one of these very cheap. It's got a fat chunk of armor, and also Elemental and Fizz taken adds fire. This is super nice defensively, so you can pop in a Dawnbreaker, and then also try to make sure that you upgrade your Soul of the Brine King to at least have a 100% chance to avoid being frozen. You can do this by putting a Divine Vessel in the map device and then running Coral Ruins map, completing that, then right-clicking the Divine Vessel. This will mean that you at least cannot be frozen. As for Shock and Ignite, early on, it's just something that you're going to have to deal with. Hopefully outleech it. It might kill you here and there, but I think having higher Fizz mitigation is more important than the 100% chance to avoid Shock and Ignite and other ailments. Ancestral Vision and Storm Shroud, fairly pricey this league, so getting that perfect chance to avoid all elemental ailments is a bit tricky. There are some things on the tree we could pick up. So this wheel over here gives us 20% chance to avoid elemental ailments. We can also go down here to Crystal Skin. If we grab 10, 20, and 20, this is another 30%. So this is 50% chance to avoid elemental ailments. You can also get an Eta implicit on your boots, which is chance to avoid elemental ailments. And then we can look and see you can get another 30% from a chest or a shield with another chance to avoid elemental ailments. Something like this could also work. So you could grab this, the boot implicit, and then those wheels on the tree, and it should get you ailment immune, but it is a fairly steep cost to grab Crystal Skin, but that is a cheaper option than going the Storm Shroud route. Otherwise, just do what I'm doing, which is getting your Soul of the Brine King, and then being okay with sometimes getting ignited and shocked. It might kill you, but probably not as often as a big Fizz Max hit. Then, next we have, which are the best mods on Lethal Pride? The mods you're wanting to look out for. Number 1 is going to be Endurance Charge on Kill. Endurance Charges are big this league. Then Rage on Hit is also excellent. Intimidate is a very nice mod, and Double Damage. All of those are really good for our build. So Endurance Charge on Kill, Double Damage, Rage, Intimidate. As for the placement, some people have asked, can we place it down here? Or does it have to be up here by Ghost Dance? If you want to go Wind Dancer, then you cannot place it here, as this will change this into a different keystone. But if you're not going Wind Dancer, then you absolutely can put it down here. Otherwise, if you do go Wind Dancer, put it up here. But let's continue. As for the belt, which belt are we going to use? Micro Distillery, it's still a pretty good option for sure, but we can also go for a Stygian Vise. Stygian Vise lets us use an Abyssal Jewel, which can get a lot of damage. We can get chance to gain phasing, attack speed, life. Also, if you're using Storm Shroud, you can get chance to avoid being shocked on your little Abyssal Jewel. As for Perseverance, this is a really great belt that I used last league. You get a lot of damage if you have enough armor and evasion, but one of the big benefits from this is that you have Onslaught during boss fights. Onslaught, while you are fortified, and it grants you a chance to gain Fortify on kill, and with the implicit from our chest, which I still do not have, you can get pretty much permanent onslaught uptime while bossing. So Perseverance is a good option. It does stretch your attributes pretty thin. You're going to struggle with your resistances and strength and dexterity, but if you can fit it in and you got a decent chunk of armor and evasion, then you can use that. As for this mod on this armor during soul gain prevention, I really like this. I still really like this, especially if you're using Perseverance. It's a nice damage and defensive boost, so don't forget to use this. You can also just go for percent life or chance to avoid elemental ailments on your chest. And then some survivability options. Firstly, Dawnbreaker, just so good, very cheap, tons of armor. Like I said, you can swap to a rare shield later on if you want. You can get ones with resistances, attack speed, chance to deal double damage. All of those are excellent. And then some automated strategies that you can employ in your build. So one that's been really good is Automate, linked with Steel Skin. You can use this early on. It grants us a little shield that absorbs a small-ish amount of damage. This is super nice. However, you can also use cast when damage taken Immortal Call. If you do have Endurance Charge Generation, which I'll get into, Immortal Call with cast when damage taken is an excellent option. However, make sure that you also have Endurance Charge Generation on bosses. So I've been using this ring over here, which is chance to gain an Endurance Charge on kill. Great for mapping. I'm not getting Endurance Charges while bossing. However, if you have a decent chunk of armor, about 22,000 plus, if you're sitting at about 25,000 armor or 30,000, definitely use Molten Shell with cast when damage taken. This, make sure that it is your armor, your 100% uptime armor, not your armor when everything is down, like you don't have your armor during soul gain prevention, flask is up, soul gain prevention. Like at this point, I'm sitting at about, with my flask up, 14,000 armor. This, I wouldn't swap into Molten Shell because Seal Skin would just be better for now. But if you do scale a lot more armor, Molten Shell is really good. As for our links, so I have actually swapped some of my gems. I'm using Lightning Strike, Nightblade, Trinity, Multi-Strike. These are all the same. And then my 6th link is Returning Projectile Support. This is super good for clear, also really good for damage. But previously I had elemental damage with attacks or volatility. I actually reached out to Palstron. I looked at his pub and I was like, hey man, why aren't you using volatility? Like, it's really good for Trinity. It's also more damage. And he made a really good point. He said, volatility is great if you're using Wrath Aura. And the only way we were getting Wrath was with the Dark Marionettes, which I don't think we're going to end up using. I haven't even got one yet. Everyone said they just aren't that nice. So he said, added lightning damage or added cold damage is a much better alternative. So for your 5th link, try added lightning damage or added cold damage. Just make sure that if you go added lightning damage, you aren't bricking your Trinity. Remember, you can check the top left to make sure that that circle is being filled completely. And then once you get Awakened added cold damage or Awakened added lightning damage, Awakened added lightning damage level 5 will increase the level of your lightning strike by 1, which is huge, but you can go for Awakened added cold damage 2. The only downside, again, with Awakened added lightning damage is it might cause your lightning strike to not proc the Trinity as easily. But yeah, volatility out, increased elemental damage with attacks, support out, rather use added cold or added lightning. Later on, once we get the leader of the pack wheel again, and then grab this reservation, and then the implicit on our helmet, 7% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills, we can use Arctic Armor. I'm not quite there yet. I think Arctic Armor is probably going to be the best bet. Also inflicting chill, which makes your taming deal more damage. I haven't tested Sand and Stone or Blood and Sand or the other one that I was thinking about. I'm just going to commit to Arctic Armor. I will test the other one. If you have tried Blood and Sand, do let me know in the comments if it feels really good, but I'm a little bit suspicious of it. So Arctic Armor, this will also grant you freeze immunity. So if you have that and you haven't upgraded your Brine King yet, that's fine. You will have your freeze immunity. Now let's talk about some endurance charge generation. There are a lot of ways to get it, and it will make a big difference to your build. So the first way is like I have this unveiled chance to gain endurance charge on kill. This you can't bench onto your gear. This only comes from the unveil. You can bench on minimum endurance charges, but you can't get the chance to gain endurance charge and kill. And again, this also doesn't give you endurance charges while bossing. So one option. Another option a lot of people have been saying is to anoint Disciple of the Unyielding. This gives you a chance to gain an endurance charge on kill and also minimum endurance charges. Super, super nice. All round, bit of damage, bit of defense, mostly for mapping. So Disciple of the Unyielding as an anoint. A lot of people have been saying they've been taking that. And then there is, of course, Enduring Composure. And another one some people have suggested is to get Smashing Strikes, 10% chance to gain an endurance charge on melee critical strike. Now this would work for bossing if you crit with the melee portion of your attack, which we are doing when we're doing bossing. So this might be a better one if you're doing a lot of bossy type stuff, whereas Disciple of the Unyielding is going to be a better anoint for if you're primarily mapping. As for Dark Marionettes, these, yeah, apparently they suck. Still haven't tried it, but what are we going to fill in those sockets? And I did some exploring, some yoinking of tech from other streamers. And I think I really like what Palstron had over here. So he filled his gems with adding a small level 1 clarity with his Precision Arrogance setup. So this is just a tiny bit of mana regen. However, this also grants us another little 8% increased damage for each aura affecting you. And that tiny bit of regen is just nice passive regen. The other socket we can use over here, which is to use Life Tap with Whirling Blades. This is mostly for cannot regen maps and after you finish looting. If you don't have a lot of passive mana regen, it feels very annoying when you are trying to loot and you just run out of mana. Someone else also suggested Venom, that you can link Whirling Blades with Rage support. This grants you just a little bit of extra rage when you Whirling Blade through enemies. And I mean, we're trying to fill up our sockets. It is actually more, it's actually better than I thought when I tested it yesterday. So you could use Rage support. And then I think we have one more socket. I will put it in the POB once I've figured out exactly what we're going to do. But I think this is probably going to be the call. Life Tap, Rage, and then also the Clarity. I think that fills up the sockets. So that's what we're going to use instead of the Dark Marionettes. We don't get Wrath anymore. Very sad, but we have so much damage that it's actually fine. Now, some people wanted guidelines on what kind of claw you need, like a baseline DPS on your claw. So early maps, I would say probably about 250 to 300 DPS. That can be just total DPS, not just EDPS. Later maps, I mean, I killed Eta Exarch. I was doing tier 16 maps with a 350 EDPS claw, which if you're playing Trade League is probably like a 1C or some item that your friend found that they'll just give to you for free. Complete rubbish. I was excited when I got a claw with chaos resistance. That's kind of the point where we're at with our progression. So early maps, 200, 250, 300 should do you fine. Later maps, yeah, 350 plus, but obviously try to get that as high as possible. A lot of people have been running around with like 500, 600, even 700 EDPS claws, and this is when your damage just goes through the roof. Mods you want on your claws, just high elemental damage, lightning, cold, fire as your prefixes, and then suffixes, attack speed, crit chance, and crit multi. The best bases that we're looking for, number one is going to be the Imperial Claw. But early on, don't worry about the base. Just check that DPS number. You can do it with Awakened PoE Trade. Control D, and I can see my DPS. So this one is 494, but the EDPS is 410. So just check that early on. Don't worry about the base too much. Later on, the base does matter a bit more. As for the Anoint, a lot of people have tons of different options. I asked everyone in chat what they were using yesterday. First thing is Static Blows. This is in the name. It blows. We don't want to use this anymore. We're not using Oath of Spring, so this is not really a great option for us anymore. So what do we use instead? And this is where everyone's suggestions came in. So, Disciple of the Unyielding at the bottom of the tree is one that I mentioned already for Endurance Charge Generation, just to tank up a little bit. Another one that I really like, suggested by a few people, Sir Napsalot, was first, Retaliation. Attack skills grant 20% increased damage while holding a shield, which we are. Also, 8% increased attack speed while holding a shield, and 60% increased defenses from equipped shield. Dawnbreaker has a lot of armor, especially if it's rolled very well. So 6% increased defenses from it is a nice chunk of armor. So I might go with this, especially since I already have a mapping endurance charge generation. Now, there's a few others. Up top, we have Claws of the Falcon. This is if you are struggling with your accuracy. You can grab this. Also gives you a very nice chunk of crit multi. So if you're really struggling to get that accuracy capped, try Claws of the Falcon. Now, over on the left side of the tree, if you do have Rage Generation, Battle Trance is very nice because that'll push your max rage from 30 up to 40, which is 10% more damage. I think this is a very nice option too. And then another one is Arcing Blows. Now, when you get your Lethal Pride and you place it over here, if your Lethal Pride hits a really good mod on Arcing Blows, like let's say double damage or Endurance Charge and Kill, you can anoint Arcing Blows. We have so much penetration that this damage is less significant than what it was before, but Arcing Blows, if your Lethal Pride is hitting a good mod, then you could pop that on. Right now, what I'm testing is Nature's Concoction. This is really good Flask Sustain. However, I think we need to build around this because it says flask adjacent to active tinctures gain 2 charges when you hit an enemy with a melee weapon, no more than once every second. Now, that is, like I said, very good flask generation. The downside is that our current tincture setup is that we only really have our tinctures active for a few seconds out of every 10-second cycle. So we're not getting the full benefit out of this. However, there is a way that maybe, and I'll explore this later on, a way that we could have our tincture uptime longer and make less use of Enduring Suffusion to get the uptime. And then this could be really good. I want to get it so that it feels like we have a free Mage Blood in our build. So you could take this if you want, but I think one of the other options are probably going to be better for the time being. Now, this Tincture Mastery. A few people have said, this Tincture Mastery, the first 6 mana burn implies to you have no effect. They say, this is pointless, don't take it, it's not good. And then I tried it, and I did not really like it. My character kept ooming. She kept saying, not enough mana, not enough mana. And I noticed that the moment I put this back on, she stopped. So you can sustain your mana burn stacks without this, but I felt like the quality of life that you're getting just from this one point is worth it. However, you can test it, remove it, see what you think, but I tested it, I didn't like it, so I decided to put it back. Avatar of the Wilds. If you haven't done your Uber Lab, make sure you do it as soon as possible. This is so busted. It's so strong, especially against bosses. Fighting against pinnacle bosses that are slowed by 50% makes them a lot easier. Also, if you're doing content like Abyss or other scary content, maybe even Sanctum. I want to test Sanctum soon. This is just, it freezes everything. Everything gets frozen. These 2 points are just a massive defensive layer. A lot of people say that the Warden has no defensive nodes. Well, here it is, right over here. It just so happens that this one also gives us 80% more elemental damage. So, yep, get your Avatar. It is so sick. As for Wind Dancer, I must explore to figure out exactly what the breakpoint to put this in is. The problem with it is if you're not evading enough and you're getting hit, well, it's actually a bit of an EHP loss. So I haven't had time to find that exact point. I would like to be able to say, you know, when you have a 75% chance to evade and, you know, 15,000 armor, then you can pop it in. I just haven't had the time to fully explore that. It was much easier to get really high value out of this last league, but with the nerfs to Determination and Grace, that loss of flat armor and evasion is actually more significant than expected. Just it's harder to get a high amount of armor and evasion. So don't spec this in too early, especially if your evasion and armor aren't too high yet. That's going to be it for this video. If you have any more questions, leave it in the comments. Join streams, join the Discord. I am a person with a job. I'm trying my best to keep up. But if you're looking for more instant feedback and updates, join the Discords, join the streams. I can't put out a video every day, unfortunately. And especially if you are struggling, hop in, ask for a hand. We still have some helpful people. When I have time, I do look at POBs. I can't look at everyone's POBs, but I'm hoping that the people who I do help pay it forward and then help other people facing similar issues. So that's it. Build kicks ass. I hope you've been enjoying it. If you haven't, well, let's look at your POB, see what you did wrong so that we can fix it. Have a wonderful day. Catch you later. Stay safe. Catch you on stream. Bye-bye. Bye.